Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'll tell you what, just like everybody else, allow me to just kind of quickly here give you my 2 cents on the State of the Union. I thought it was a fantastic speech, very well done, and it was very, very aggressive, which was good. That's, I think, what a great deal of Americans wanted to hear. He went for the throat on a great deal of people, of course. And in stereotypical fashion, of course, you had 70 some odd senators and representatives, certainly on the left side of the political aisle, not even show up. That right there again proves that they have something to hide. If they didn't have anything to hide, then they'd be there. And if they didn't have anything to hide, then they would be standing and applauding for all of the things that a common sense person would be standing and applauding for, but of course they didn't. And again, just body language in general, and certainly nonverbal communication, if you look at the face of Ilhan Omar during that entire speech, she was terrified. Hence why she was screaming and shouting, and she should be terrified. She's directly linked to one of the largest RICO violations that's existed in the history of the United States. It's not that she's running point on all of the Somali fraud, but she's certainly, again, in that giant web of individuals who know exactly what's happening, exactly what's going on. And of course, she's in the state where it's occurring. And of course, it's occurring everywhere. It's not just Minnesota or Ohio or Michigan or whatever. It's everywhere. But she's terrified, and she should be. And this is, again, kind of the main point that I want to hone in on is the power of the executive branch. The speech itself, I think, defines exactly why we have a separation of powers. And why, again, when in the right hands and with the right people surrounding the right president, you can certainly have an executive branch that has a great deal of power and a great deal of clout, so to speak, in order to get done what they need to get done to keep Americans safe and do the right thing. With that said, I think you saw it again in the speech because of the way that he was attacking the other branches of government. See, that's really what's supposed to happen. Now, of course, when Joe Biden was in office, you saw a particular portion of the right side of the political aisle, so to speak, again, get angry at the executive branch, and rightfully so. And then, of course, you had other fractions of the legislative branch support Joe Biden and whatever else. And then again, certain elements of the judicial branch both agree and disagree with him, certainly when it came to certain rulings that were being made. But what we saw again on Tuesday night, I think, was perfect because, again, Donald Trump was going after all of the other branches. He was calling out, again, the judicial branch for their bad call on tariffs and not being able to use, again, an emergency act when it comes to tariffs for national security. Again, he had absolutely no problem looking him in the face and saying it, which was perfect. He had no problem looking at the representatives there and saying insider trading should be against the law and we need to pass a law right now to make that the case. Again, it was perfect because both sides of the aisle are guilty of it all of the time. I think the most important thing that he said, of course, he said a great deal of important things, but me personally, I think the most important thing that he said had to do not just with the fraud, but specifically with voter fraud. When he honed in on that and he said, again, we have to pass the SAVE Act because the only way that the Democrats can win is if they cheat. It's the only way that they've ever been able to win is through cheating, certainly now. So if an election goes in one way or another, well, ladies and gentlemen of America, he told the whole country it's because they're cheating. They're using illegal aliens to vote. Because that's the only way that they can win any election. And he's right. And he told everybody that because it would be the executive branch that would have all of that information. Again, this is the funniest part about all of this and the constant debates and the commentary and the back and the forth. The executive branch is in charge of every branch of the military. If we are under a continuity of government, which we certainly seem to be, then yes, a great deal of what we're watching is not being run by the legislative or the judicial branch. It has to be run by the executive branch, specifically the military, which means why would the military not have the communications, the whereabouts, and all of the information from all of these criminals that exist within our own government at their disposal. They would. Which means the only reason that certain people haven't been arrested, like in Ilhan Omar, for example, where everybody knows she's an illegal alien. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows she's not an American citizen. Married her brother, came over here illegally, the whole thing. She's fraud through and through. But the only reason that she's not arrested yet is because they aren't done squeezing her and surveilling her. It has to be the only reason. You don't pull the trigger on somebody like her when she's continuing to expose the people around her and engage in all of these stunts that she's engaging in because she's continuing to show associations with other people and other organizations that are getting wrapped up in all of this information gathering. Like I said earlier, you're talking about a massive RICO case here. So I have no doubt, again, given the fact that he was pointing right at her, the president was, and letting her have it, calling them Somali pirates and grifters and the whole thing. When he was doing that and triggering the ever-living hell out of her, it's because he's the head of the executive branch and he already knows the answer. He knows what they have on her, and he knows, again, what they're going to do to her. Her days are numbered. Many of them, their days are numbered, which is great. We, of course, want to see it publicly, and we want to see it happen quickly. And unfortunately, that's not happening. But there has to be a very specified timeline. It's the only other explanation. I don't believe for a minute that all of it is fake and nothing is going to happen and there won't be arrests. There have to be. But I think, again, that the tone of that particular speech proves it because he kept his foot on the pedal and he rubbed their noses in it the entire time. Here's our nation, here's what's been going on, here's the fraud and the corruption that we've been exposing, and oh, by the way, you're all allowing it to happen. And he's pointing around the room, and he's saying, you're all allowing this to happen. And then he's looking at the Republicans, and he's saying, we have to get things done here, because you haven't done anything, so do something. But again, he's the head of the executive branch of the United States of America, which means he can have military officials arrest people and bypass the Department of Justice to do that and to get that done. I think that's only a matter of time. Again, it's the only way that we win. It's the only way that we attempt to come back as a country, is with that kind of serious high-level accountability. Again, the question that he asked them about, do you support Americans or do you support illegal aliens? You know, stand up if you support legal Americans, and of course none of them did on the left side of the aisle. It was a perfect trap. Perfect art of war trap. Perfect art of the deal trap. Back them into a position where they have to make a move that they don't want to make, and regardless of the move that they make, if they stand and they applaud for Americans, they look like hypocrites. If they sit down, then they show their true colors also, but more blatantly, and they fell for it. It also shows again that they're all on the same page, and they're all on the same page against Americans. This is not new to us. We're well aware that that's the case, but at least people got to see it. At least individuals, again, all across America, whether they still be independent voters or, again, they're individuals who have been on the left most of their life and they're saying, you know what, this whole left-wing thing is getting stale for me. I just can't take it anymore and blah, blah, blah. And then they watch that speech and they watch those actions of those politicians. That right there, you'd think, would solidify it for them. So there's no doubt that there were traps that were set during that speech, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And again, like I said at the end of the last episode, it's a show because you're always going to get just clips and people moving around clips and the whole thing. The other funny part is that, of course, you had the cameramen, certainly on C-SPAN. And I watched it on C-SPAN because when you watch it on C-SPAN, you're getting kind of the most objective camera work, I would say, of any of the other broadcasts. And Fox News will even tune in and basically run on the same camera feed as C-SPAN. So C-SPAN kind of runs point on the whole thing. At least that's my take, and that's kind of always been my take on it. But people were even commenting again on where the camera was going to go at certain points of the speech. There's no doubt that it was scripted as to where the camera was going to go. It was on Ilhan Omar. when comments about Somali fraud were being mentioned. That's not an accident. Very rarely did the camera pan over to individuals on the right side of the aisle. Howard Lutnick was shown a couple of times. He didn't look very happy, but he was there. Same thing with John Roberts when Donald Trump was talking about their most recent ruling on the Supreme Court. The camera zoomed right into his face and he looked like he was about to start crying. Again, they have to have sort of plain looks on their faces as much as humanly possible, as does the military. But the camera work was just too perfect. And I would even say this, again, it was funny when they brought up the detransitioning of that teenage girl. And again, a school system that was hiding the transitioning of this teenage girl from their mother and confusing the ever-living hell out of this teenage girl, which of course is satanic. But when that got brought up, the camera went right to Tim McBride, or Sarah McBride. It's Tim because it's a dude who happens to be, of course, a male congressman pretending to be a woman. The camera went right to his face, and it was perfect. And again, the camera work is on point. It's specifically designed to get people's attention and to get a reaction from the individuals. Again, why would they pan right to his face when talking about trannies being ripped out of their parents' homes and being confused in the whole thing? And the funny part, I thought, was that the Tim McBride dude, Sarah McBride, it's Tim, like I said, I believe that they graduated from Liberty University. So where did they just so happen to give this teenage female who, again, detransitioned and is no longer confused a full ride? To the exact same university. They gave him a full ride scholarship to Liberty University. What are the odds? And then again, they zoom right in on Tim McBride's face, just sitting there looking confused. It was perfect. It's that kind of coordination that is not an accident. I'll take it a step further. There were 17 U.S. hockey players that showed up. 17. Not 18, not 16, 17. 17th letter of the alphabet is Q. I found that interesting. A lot of other people found that interesting. Again, could have been any number, but it wasn't. It was 17. Then you had Erica Kirk. Who was Erica Kirk sitting next to? Erica Kirk just so happened to be placed next to the mother of the Ukrainian white gal, allegedly, or Jewish gal, whatever, who was stabbed in the neck, I believe in South Carolina, on that bus by the black guy. And of course, the footage has came out about it, and everybody lost their minds, and rightfully so, and there you have it. But you saw a stark contrast in the reactions between two women who allegedly had, again, someone in their life who they loved, allegedly, both die. Erica Kirk wasn't crying. She was doing her terrible acting job per usual, dabbing the eyes and saying, God bless you, in that weird whisper that she does. Again, no tears, nothing. And then the other woman was hiding her face with her hair, sobbing, with tears flowing down her face. That's a real reaction of grief when a person loses someone. That's a real reaction. That's very authentic. Not so with Erica Kirk, but you saw it because they were right next to each other. Again, of all of the seats in the entire joint, why would you have the two of them sitting right next to one another? Someone's trying to tell you something. They're trying to tell people that one of them is a fraud and the other one is not. And I have to mention this too because this is, again, directly related to Erica Kirk and all of that nonsense, is a couple of things. First of all, apparently she found her way into a public school system and she was giving a speech to public school students. And again, talking about religion and faith and whatever else. It's like, okay, it seems a bit out of place. And again, unfortunately, a lot of the students there are impressionable and they're being brainwashed into believing that she's somehow a victim of something. And yet they've apparently never even bothered to look into her past. Whereas, of course, Candace Owens is doing that and has apparently come out with this documentary, or is coming out with a documentary, The Bride of Charlie or something like that. Again, a funny name, like Bride of Chucky, that kind of thing. But either way, then you have the Dan Bonginos of the world calling Candace Owens a son of a bitch and making fun of her for, again, going after and raising questions about Erica Kirk. Same thing with Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck's doing the exact same thing. How dare you ask questions and how dare you question Erica Kirk and I was friends with Charlie and he's dead and blah, blah, blah. Everybody's being tricked here because there are endless psychological operations taking place. With that said, it doesn't mean that the individuals who believe that Charlie is dead are actually bright people. If Dan Bongino's jabbed. Hell, Glenn Beck's probably jabbed too. I haven't heard him talk about it, but he probably is. So you have these individuals who fell for that psychological operation, and then they fell for this one too regarding the fake killing of Charlie Kirk. But it's worse than that. It's that they don't even want people to ask questions about the pasts of these people that are affiliated with one another and TPUSA and the whole thing. They paint TPUSA as being, again, a charitable organization. It isn't. It's an intelligence gathering organization that is Israeli. That should bother people. But yes, anybody's allowed to ask questions, even if, again, a person really dies who is associated with said person. And this is coming from the former deputy director of the FBI. You would think, again, that he would have his thinking cap on and he'd be able to ask questions, or at the very least, just not bring it up at all. If he has serious questions about Erica Kirk, he could ask those questions, or if he's afraid of any blowback, he should just keep his mouth closed, but he's not doing that. He's attacking the likes of Candace Owens, and Candace Owens is wrong too because Charlie's not dead. And I bet Candace knows this. She's just leading people along to look more into Erica Kirk and her reactions to things and her, again, past and current associations and child trafficking in Romania and everything else. I mean, it's dirty. It's really dirty stuff. But when these individuals have these massive accounts and they're incapable of seeing anything on a third or fourth or fifth dimension, then they've lost the plot and they can't be trusted. They're gatekeepers, and they're trying to get people, again, to just believe everything that they say without stopping and looking at their audience and saying, you know what? The best questions are the ones that haven't been asked. And everybody has a right as a human being and as an individual to ask as many questions as they want about any situation that they want anytime. I mean, hell, I've said it here on the show. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to any of this. I want people to think for themselves. I've been criticized for saying things that are factually accurate at the time when I say them to then, of course, only have people come back and be like, wow, he was right. Well, yeah. That's only because, again, I bring knowledge and background to a particular situation, which allows me to see it again and again and again as being repetitive and usually being, again, false, or there being trickery involved or scheming and meddling. And then I just don't trust it. And then you let just a little bit of time pass. The old 72-hour rule, as they say, and before you know it, the truth comes out from somebody else that verifies exactly what you were saying or thinking at the time. Again, the Erica Kirk thing is so dirty, and it's so obviously dirty, that it blows me away that there are still people who believe that Charlie Kirk is dead. Which begs the question again, given the fact that he was in on it, how was he in on it? And I'm not going to make this about Charlie Kirk this whole episode, trust me. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'm just going to pose this question. If Charlie Kirk, which of course he was involved in his fake killing, it's obvious that he was involved because why wouldn't he be? I mean, he's not dead. But was that designed to catch his so-called wife? Was it designed to catch TPUSA? It's a question. Again, did Charlie know what was going on with TPUSA? Were people around Charlie setting him up to actually get killed? Because again, the reactions from Erica Kirk and the people around TPUSA all seemed very odd after the fake killing. It wasn't immediate grief, it was immediate damage control. It was immediate, we need to get our arms around this, and we need to sell merch, and we need to organize the company and restructure it, and then ask for donations and everything else. It was all just constant distraction. But again, did the people around Charlie and the people, for example, again, everybody around him at that particular event was in on it because, of course, they picked up his still breathing body and threw him into an SUV, and then they drove away and buckled each other up in their seatbelts and had smiles on their faces as they drove to an airport. I mean, they were in on it, but were they in on it, again, on the side of a Charlie Kirk to expose an Erica Kirk in the larger organization, or are all of them in on it for one reason or another? I'm not sure. But if a Dan Bongino, a former deputy director of the FBI, can't even look into that, then he's a moron. So the point is, ask questions. That's the point. Never stop asking questions. It's too important. There's also this. There's this Colin McDonald guy who apparently has been appointed, and he still has yet to be confirmed, but or confirmed rather by the Senate, apparently. Apparently that has to happen. But he's been named as the fraud czar, quote unquote, by Donald Trump. And I wanted to read a little description of him in his past here. It says the following on X: Colin McDonald, is a career federal prosecutor nominated by President Donald Trump in late January of 2026 to serve as the first ever Assistant Attorney General for National Fraud Enforcement. Now, unfortunately, and this is typical political nonsense, when an announcement like this gets made, you'll see Republicans, quote unquote, in name only, rhinos, certainly within conservative states, openly say, yes, this is a great move. We've always been on top of fraud and we're interested in it, and, whatever else. And if you have any complaints, send them to my desk. We had Frank LaRose in Ohio, who's our Secretary of State, say the exact same thing on X. And I responded to him and I just said, check your email inbox, you bastard. People have been sending you stories about fraud for months, if not years. What are you doing about it? But again, this forces their hand to make it look like they're doing something when in fact they've never really been doing anything. But either way, regarding Colin McDonald here, it says, this role heads a newly created division within the Department of Justice, often referred to informally as the fraud czar position. Trump announced the nomination on Truth Social, describing McDonald as a very smart, tough, and highly respected America First federal prosecutor who's handled difficult high-stakes cases with the goal of ending fraud and restoring integrity to federal programs. The new division focuses on investigating, prosecuting, and remedying fraud against the federal government, targeting large-scale abuse of taxpayer-funded programs like Medicaid, SNAP, food stamps, Obamacare-related claims, and scams against seniors. Estimates cited in hearings suggest annual federal losses of fraud range from $320 billion to $520 billion. McDonald has highlighted Minnesota's recent crackdown on welfare and social services fraud involving hundreds of millions allegedly swindled as a potential national blueprint for scaling efforts, including in states like California. Now, what's interesting about this, and this is one of the debates happening now, is that the fraud is not limited to just Somalis or illegal aliens. And rather famously, over on YouTube, a Tyler Oliveria, if I'm saying his name correctly, he's the one who again went into, I believe, New Jersey. And he went into these Hasidic Jew and Orthodox Jew neighborhoods and went around asking them questions and taping them and the whole thing. And he's again asking, like, how many kids do you have? What do you do for a living? How do you make your money? And as it turns out, the vast majority of their children and their families, these Jewish families, are on welfare. So it's interesting again, and numerous people have commented on this, including Nick Fuentes, but it's glaring because the double standard is hilarious. Again, it's apparently 100% fine again for people to go right after Somalis, and rightfully so they should, but when the same kind of fraud is taking place among the Jewish community, so to speak, it's hands off and no one brings it up. But they're directly involved. They were the ones that created it in the first place. Who do you think taught it to the Somalis? So as a result, Tyler's Patreon account apparently has been nuked. Certain sponsors have left him. And the first time he did this was like a month or so ago. Again, when he was going around those New Jersey neighborhoods and filming it and putting it out on YouTube. So it's not that it's new, but unfortunately the reaction to it is relatively new. But people have to understand again, yes, there is fraud, but it is also race-based. And it is among, again, certain quote-unquote communities who tend to do it more often than others. And this is a huge issue. My hope is that this Colin McDonald guy understands that and goes after that. I'm not going to hold my breath on him busting into Hasidic Jew, neighborhoods and start busting these individuals for welfare fraud and engaging in welfare fraud. But again, the business of stealing money is not a new thing, and yet it's the same people and the same players almost every single time, regardless of what country they live in. This is why, again, historically, Khazarians and the Jewish lobby and just, again, Hasidic Jews in general have been kicked out of endless countries over the course of centuries. It's for things just like this. And regarding, again, the nomination process of Mr. McDonald here, it says the following. The nomination followed the White House's establishment of the Fraud Division in early 2026 amid attention on fraud scandals in Democrat-led states and broader efforts to curb government waste. McDonald testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on February 25, 2026, with Chairman Chuck Grassley opening the hearing positively. He emphasized following facts and law without political bias, stating that he is a career federal prosecutor who applies the law impartially. Republicans highlighted his potential to combat fraud nationwide and save taxpayer dollars. Democrats pressed him on the division's independence from White House influence, given initial reports of direct White House oversight, though later clarified as reporting through the deputy AG like other divisions his past work on the weaponization group and whether he would pursue politically motivated cases. McDonald largely deflected specifics on potential cases or hypothetical orders, saying he has no predetermined targets and would focus on evidence. Again, he works at the discretion of the president, which is the executive branch. So yeah, if the White House says go after this, he gets to, because he works at the discretion of the president. Executive branch. Again, it's not complicated. Unfortunately, it just so happens that Senator Kennedy did not like some of his answers, and I want to play their exchange. It's about 5.5 minutes long. Again, this was just the other day. But give this a listen here in 3, 2, 1.
What kind of fraud are you going to go after?
Senator, the core that I would say that we're going to go after within this division initially as we build out will be taxpayer-funded programs such as Medicaid, such as the SNAP program, and other subsidiary HHS, USDA, et cetera, programs. We will be putting our view there.
Who's going to make the decision about which of these specific types of fraud you go after?
Senator, in the course of building out investigations, we work directly with the federal investigators.
Who's going to make the decision about which specific types of fraud you go after?
Senator, with respect to this role, I believe I will be working with the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General to figure out how we prioritize this mountain of fraud.
So it's you, the Deputy Attorney General, and the Attorney General?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. So if you've got 10 cases of clear fraud, you and the Deputy and the Attorney General will sit down and decide which ones to prosecute and prioritize.
Well, Senator, when it comes to the case level, that work happens within our line AUSAs.
Counselor, I got 5 minutes. No disrespect. You're a good guy. Answer my question.
At the programmatic level, and as we build out the division, those decisions will be made with the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General. With respect to specific case questions,
do you already have cases in mind?
I do not have cases in mind, Senator.
Okay. So suppose we can agree. I think that the federal taxpayers, American taxpayers, put up between 50 and 90% of the money in the Medicaid program. States love it. Let's suppose that you have a governor who knows there's fraud in his Medicaid program, but he ignores it because he would lose all this federal money. Is that fraud?
Senator, I think that's a form of fraud, waste, and abuse. Whether it fits within the contours of criminal culpability,
is that the sort of thing you're going to look at?
Senator, as referenced earlier, we will be looking at the full scope of fraud.
Answer my question, Counselor. Is that the sort of thing you're going to look at?
Senator, I do plan to look at the full range of potentially criminally culpable actors.
Let's suppose, are you familiar with an inspector general?
Yes,
I'm sure you are, because you're a good lawyer. Let's suppose, and you're aware, I'm sure, that inspectors general act independently of a cabinet secretary. Cabinet secretary under the law, I think it's 5 U.S.C. section 417, can only overrule an inspector general if what that inspector general is doing is dramatically hurts the U.S. interests or some sort of pretty language like that. Let's suppose an inspector general comes in and cabinet secretary or senior official says to an inspector general, I want to know what cases you're investigating. And you have to tell me. And if any of them are going to impact me in terms of my reputation, I'm going to pull you off of them. Is that fraud?
Senator, I would see that as a form of conflict of interest to the extent that that'll look bad for the cabinet secretary. I
know that. Is that the sort of thing you're going to get involved in?
Senator, I will be focused on criminal prosecutions. That will be my focus in identifying fraudsters operating, taking money.
Let's suppose the Census Bureau tells you that 11% of the American people are poor, and we get to decide the definition. But we're going to exclude about 80% of the federal benefits that we give to folks and determining this 11%. So that instead of 11%, we really have only 1% of the American people that are below the poverty level. Is that fraud? Is it fraud if a cabinet secretary knows that and doesn't do anything about it?
Senator, there are a range of criminal tools that the Department of Justice can bring to bear.
Is that fraud?
Fraud in the classic sense of executing a scheme to defraud a government program? Probably not.
Is it right?
No, it is not right.
Is it moral?
No, it is not, Senator.
Is it ethical?
Senator,
does not seem ethical to me, Senator.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ronald.
Here's the reason Kennedy asked those questions. He asked those questions because he knows that politicians are directly involved in fraud, in facilitating fraud, and, of course, weaponizing people within politics to go after particular individuals who are going after fraud. So he's basically saying, again, if you come across this fraud and you find out that other individuals, it's exactly what would happen, you peel back the onion, you're going to find more fraud. But if politicians are directly involved, or anybody working around politicians are directly involved, are you going to go after those people? Now, Kennedy's asking the question because he knows that plenty of politicians are directly, again, aligned with fraud, whether that be mortgage fraud or whatever else, like Adam Schiff, for example. Again, Adam Schiff was in the same hearing. He sits on the same committee. It's the Judiciary Committee. And we know that Adam Schiff is specifically engaged in mortgage fraud also. Again, Donald Trump brought up the allegation, which means if Donald Trump, the head of the executive branch, is bringing up the allegation, then you know that that's exactly what Adam Schiff is engaged in. So it's not accidental. But even Amy Klobuchar, again, senator from all places, Minnesota, she openly came out and goes, I just wanted to tell everybody that I believe that fraud is terrible and anybody guilty of it and stealing taxpayer dollars should be prosecuted and go to jail. I've said that in the past and blah, blah, blah. She's received kickbacks from the very people in her own state who are engaging in fraud and profiting from fraud. I mean, what's she going to say? Is she going to say that? Is she going to admit to illegality? But that's what Kennedy was bringing up. Kennedy was basically saying, okay, are you going to go after all these other people like, I don't know, people in this very room who have the title of senator? Are you going to go after them too? And the answer is yeah, you have to, because it's a RICO case. All of these fraud cases are not just a singular person. It's not one person who signs off on a piece of paper and steals. It's numerous individuals, always. But the number of people that they're going to have on any given case has got to be massive. Again, you're talking about nationwide, statewide, countywide fraud. It's almost too much for any one entity to handle. But again, if the federal government gets word of it, or even state government gets word of it, and they start actually legitimately communicating with one another to go after individuals, well, I hope that happens. I certainly do. Again, when the feds get your name and they start looking into you, they usually don't take their eyes off. Much like, again, an Anissa Liban on the Westerville, Ohio, Westerville City Schools School Board. She's fraud from top to bottom. I think it's only a matter of time before she's indicted and goes to jail. She has to. She's wrapped up in all of this. From Minnesota to Washington, back and forth again. I've been over the whole thing even on Substack. You're well versed in it, but she's a prime example. So, yeah, I think the walls are closing in on her, and that's a good thing. Okay, Hillary Clinton. This is odd. I got this wrong, and it's beyond confusing, frankly. As it turns out, the Hillary Clinton deposition, which of course is happening allegedly as I'm talking right now on Thursday, is happening in Chappaquiddick, behind closed doors, again, with lawyers, much like the Les Wexner deposition. I think it's only a matter of time before that hits YouTube in its entirety. But as that's taking place, the actual oversight committee in Congress is meeting live right now, as I'm talking, again on Thursday here, and they're basically just having a debate session back and forth about Epstein files and who's responsible and who's involved and all of that. It's a giant show. But I think, again, the legal deposition of the Clintons is going to be interesting. Because, again, you don't get deposed like that if you aren't directly involved to some extent. I hope they ask them questions again about the Clinton Foundation and where that money went. Again, you would hope that those lawyers who are deposing her have communicated with the other lawyers from past years who have testified in front of Congress and openly said that the Clinton Foundation, again, is responsible for crimes against humanity and crimes against children. That was very famously even a Fox News headline. That was on actual Fox News channel on the old TV from many years back. So it'll be interesting to see if those questions get brought up and how panicked Hillary becomes within those meetings, because she's becoming more and more unhinged as time goes on, which is, again, always fun to watch. So yeah, when that makes its way to YouTube, which I hope it does, I will certainly bring it to your attention. Now, when it comes to fraud, it's been a busy week again, with individuals wrapped up with the Epstein files resigning their particular positions anyway. Of course, you had Prince Andrew, as we all know, and Lord Mandelson. Now there's Larry Summers, affiliated with Harvard University. He's resigned his position. You have Richard Axel has resigned due to his past friendship and association with Jeff Epstein as well. And now you have Borg Brendy, if I'm saying that right, the president and CEO of the World Economic Forum, resigning after the organization launched an investigation into his ties with Epstein. The thing that I would again say regarding all of this is the following. We're being told it's because of their affiliations with Epstein, but it could be for more things. It's quite possible, again, that someone has gotten to them and said, we have you, you're going to resign your position, and now you're going to come with us. And then they're taken into another room where they're shown their crimes, and then they're whisked away. Again, when we're talking about crimes against humanity, yes, it should be made public, but you can also squeeze these people behind closed doors to gather more information on more individuals. And it's not that the good guys don't already have all the information. I'm certain that they probably do. However, squeezing these people would be a whole lot of fun. So I don't think that the resignations are happening again by accident, and I don't think it's just because of affiliations with Jeff Epstein. I think it's because of other things, again, that they specifically have done. Again, whether we're talking about sealed indictments that are now unsealed, or we're talking about, again, these individuals being shown their indictment, or grand juries, or whatever. I just feel like there's a little bit more than just an affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein. It's got to be a little bit more than that. There is this also, and this is huge, again, sliding right into education here. This is from the Gateway Pundit, developing FBI raids home of far-left Los Angeles Unified School District superintendent. And Alberto, oh, good luck with this last name, Carvalho, I'm saying that right? Probably not. Either way, this individual makes more than the President of the United States. And again, the salary that position typically holds for individuals who hold the office of the President. I mean, this guy makes, again, as the superintendent, close to $500,000 a year. And let me just say this, if a search warrant has been issued for his home, that means that they have more than ample evidence to confiscate all of his technology, all of his devices, and go through his home looking for very specified things. Again, this is probably not a ransack your home, flipping over mattresses, the whole thing. They probably know exactly what they're looking for, exactly where it is. And again, given the size of the school district, which I believe it's the second largest in the entire nation, and the geographic location, take all of that into account, you're probably talking about cartel money, you're probably talking about human trafficking, misappropriation of money, and at the very least, there's this audio clip, which oddly enough comes from Harmeet Dillon, and I'm going to play this here for you, and it has to do with, again, Los Angeles Unified School District basically discriminating against white students. That the more brown students, again, whether they be illegal aliens or black students who are, again, lawful citizens or what have you, the more minorities, so to speak, students that they have within their school district, the more money they receive. So if they're discriminating against white students because they're going to receive less money from white students, well, that's fraud too, and that's highly illegal. Here's Harmeet Dillon in 3, 2, 1.
Basically, there was a private lawsuit decades ago, and as a result of that lawsuit, Los Angeles implemented a formula system that if the district, the sort of sub-district within the school district is 30% or more white, they kind of get the least funding per capita. And if they have more minority students in the district, then they'll get additional funding to lower the ratio of teachers to students to 5.5 to 1. There's also additional magnet funding for those districts that are more minority in makeup than white. And so this is clearly illegal under United States law, the very same law that we pointed to in the Harvard case. And it's not fair or legal to discriminate against any citizen in our country for government benefits on the basis of their race, whatever that race is. So this is the biggest, if not one of the biggest school districts in the United States. And this is, millions of students there. So this is big stuff, and we're going to take it very seriously.
Again, I say cartels also just because of the geographic location. Why would there not be cartel money moving around? Why would there not be drugs? Why would there not be kickbacks? All of that. you would have to have all of those associations with a school district that size, and certainly with a guy who's making that amount of money. It's too suspicious. So yeah, Los Angeles isn't the only one. Endless school districts steal. Endless school districts receive kickbacks from NGOs and criminal organizations. It happens all of the time. It's a nationwide problem. Again, almost every single entity that government is involved in is corrupt. I understand that that's the obvious statement of the century, but this is how big it is. And again, it continues to baffle my mind that people continue to send their children into these organizations where this level of illegality is happening. As I've said before, if it was a restaurant that gave you food poisoning, you would never go back. Hell, if it's a restaurant you've never even been in and it just looks weird from the outside, you don't even walk in. But if it's a school and somebody's beaten, or again, someone overdoses on drugs, or there's rampant fraud or sexual abuse or whatever, the number of people that send their children back the very next day is overwhelming. It's astounding to me. So, yeah, you would think that after this, whatever it ends up turning out to be, which it's not nothing, you don't get a search warrant for nothing. Certainly in an area like that. The number of people who send their children back, even with a new superintendent in place, is going to be overwhelming. They should just let the whole damn thing burn by not going ever again, but they won't do that. And in that same vein, I actually want to end with this, kind of a shorter episode here today, but this is messed up. And the left-wing media is twisting this particular story, as they typically would, to make it look like they're doing these children a favor, when in fact, in so-called doing them a favor, they've exposed a massive problem, and it has to do with literacy. This has to do with Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. And it says here the following: they've launched a program to screen children's literacy skills during pediatric visits starting at age 3. It says the initiative aims to identify reading struggles early and support families with personalized plans and literacy kits. Screenings, which take about 10 minutes and are conducted in English or Spanish, focus on children in clinics near schools with low kindergarten readiness scores. It says over 63% of kindergartners in Columbus City schools were behind in language and literacy skills during the 24-25 school year, according to state data. I'm going to continue with this explanation, but the number of people who are responsible for that high level of illiteracy and incompetence is overwhelming. It is an indictment on the Columbus City School District. No doubt about it. Again, if Nationwide Children's Hospital has these so-called literacy kits, you know my take on it. I wonder how many copies of the McGuffey readers are in those literacy kits. I'm going to guess 0. But if every kid walked away with one and every family or parents walked away with one, they could teach themselves to read as parents a little bit better than maybe they already do, and who knows, maybe they're illiterate as well. But the children would at least have a fighting chance. But how many copies of the McGuffey readers exist within the Columbus City schools? 0. I don't even have to go to know that answer. Again, they paint the picture like they're helping. Well, we're Nationwide Children's Hospital, and here we are, and we're helping children. Well, okay, great. How about the Columbus City schools? I mean, what about them? What are they doing? Again, it's an indictment on them, and that they don't know what the hell they're doing. They're graduating people and moving people through the government meat grinder without the ability to read. It goes on here, it says the program from Nationwide Children's Hospital began in 2022, has conducted more than 2,400 screenings, and serves many families who are uninsured or on Medicaid. Sarah Bode, the hospital medical director of school-based health, emphasizes that pediatric visits offer a key opportunity to address literacy gaps, as doctors already conduct regular developmental screenings. I bet that's absolutely heartbreaking when they do that too. It says Carnisha Edwards, lead kindergarten readiness coordinator, notes that the goal is not to diagnose conditions like dyslexia, but to guide parents in simple at-home activities such as reading aloud. Oh my gosh, what a novel idea. Reading aloud. You know, that thing that they don't do in school because they have headphones on and they're staring at a computer screen typing on a computer, playing a game. They're not actually saying the words out loud. And people are shocked that they can't read. Blows me away. It says after each screening, families receive a literacy kit tailored to their child's needs, often including books, dry erase boards, and motor skill tools, based on feedback from local teachers. Well, if that's the case, then they're still going to be illiterate. If they're relying on local teachers, the very school system where they're supposed to be learning, you can't make this joke up. These jokes write themselves. Coordinators also connect families to early education programs like Head Start or the Spark Home Visit program. There you go, that'll help. Not. A follow-up visit a year later helps track progress. For example, Jury Sleet, now aged 4, showed significant improvement in letter recognition and sight words after participating in the program and enrolling in preschool with the hospital's support. Honestly, who's to say the preschool thing is going to help? It's the same school system. It's the same school system that's failing them. It says Nationwide's approach reflects a growing national concern. Only about 30% of fourth graders are reading proficiently. That means 70% are illiterate. 70%. And again, it's a racial thing. It's not just whites. It's predominantly minorities and illegals. But Vivek Ramaswamy says, well, they're not the problem. It's just an education problem. No, it's both. Both things are the issue. Again, it says institutions like Boston Children's Hospital also promote early literacy resources, recognizing the critical role of early intervention in long-term academic success, unquote. Well, of course. Of course. Early intervention on literacy. No duh. From the school of common sense. But again, if their answer to literacy is plugging them into a computer with headphones on, staring at a screen and not talking, that's not literacy. The human mind has to hear its own voice out loud, say the words and say the sentences in actual phonics. That's how you learn how to read. You don't learn how to read in your own head, looking at whatever, jungle animals on some game where you're matching up words with letters and blah, blah, blah. That's not how it gets done. You have to actually say it out loud. But again, you're not going to find a copy of the McGuffey Readers anywhere within any of these programs. And again, what qualifies a person? I'm truly asking, what qualifies a person to become the head of literacy within the Nationwide Children's Hospital? I bet they make a pretty penny. I bet they make a good amount of money doing that. And again, what kinds of materials and who pays for those kinds of materials to show up to so-called be used? It's a rather cheap answer. McGuffey Readers, again, you can get them on eBay and Amazon used for cents on the dollar. So, I don't know. It just seems ridiculous, but yeah, it's a school problem. Again, it's an indictment on the Columbus City schools, and if it's happening there, well, you know it's happening everywhere. It's not just an inner city school district problem, it's an everywhere problem. And yes, it's most certainly an illegal alien problem as well. No doubt about it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening as always. Have a great weekend, and I will catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.